Did you know that in the United States, more than half of all suicides are committed with a gun? Hi everyone, this is Brain Bloom Studio. Today we're going to talk about why guns play such a huge role in suicide numbers in America, and what this tells us about mental health and society. When people think about gun deaths in the U.S., most imagine mass shootings or violent crimes. But statistically, the largest share of gun deaths doesn't come from crime at all. It comes from suicide. In fact, each year, tens of thousands of Americans take their own lives, and over half of those deaths involve a firearm. That's not just a number, it's a reflection of how accessible guns are, and how powerful a role they play in moments of crisis. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine someone going through severe depression or a sudden personal crisis. If they reach for pills, there is at least a chance to survive, because medical help might arrive in time. But if a gun is available, the outcome is almost always final. This is what researchers call lethality of means. And in the United States, the easy availability of guns makes suicide attempts far more likely to end in death compared to countries with stricter gun control. Now, some might ask, if someone is determined, won't they find another way? Mental health experts say it's not that simple. Many suicide attempts are impulsive, happening in moments of extreme distress. If lethal means are less accessible, survival is much more likely. Studies show that people who survive an initial suicide attempt often don't go on to die by suicide later. In other words, reducing immediate access to lethal weapons can literally save lives. But guns are only part of the story. We also have to look at mental health care in America. On the surface, therapy and psychiatric care are becoming more common. Young people talk openly about seeing a therapist. And it's not unusual to hear celebrities, athletes, or influencers encouraging their audiences to prioritize mental health. That's a cultural shift. But underneath, there are still serious challenges. One big problem is cost. Therapy sessions can be expensive, often $100 or more per visit, and not everyone has insurance that covers mental health. Even with insurance, the system can be confusing, with high deductibles or limits on the number of sessions. For lower-income families, this creates a barrier that keeps many from getting help when they need it most. The irony is that mental health support is more normalized than ever, but still out of reach for millions because of money. There's also the issue of availability. In rural areas, for example, there may not even be enough mental health professionals to meet demand. Long waiting lists are common. Someone struggling right now might be told they can't see a therapist for several weeks, and for a person in crisis, that's simply too long. Then we come to stigma. Yes, it's getting better. But the idea that seeking mental health care is a sign of weakness still lingers. In certain communities, families may avoid talking about depression or suicide altogether, framing it as a private matter, something to be hidden. For men in particular, cultural expectations about toughness can prevent them from admitting they're struggling. This stigma can delay treatment until it's too late. At the same time, there's hope in the generational shift. Younger Americans are much more willing to discuss mental health, share their struggles online, and see therapy as a normal part of life, just like going to the gym or visiting a dentist. This openness can reduce stigma over time, encouraging more people to get help early before a crisis escalates. But change takes time, and while the younger generation is moving forward, older generations often remain hesitant. So what does all this mean for America's suicide crisis? It means we need a two-sided approach, one side addressing gun access, and the other improving mental health care. Without tackling both, the problem remains. Restricting access to firearms for those in crisis could dramatically reduce suicide deaths. Expanding affordable, accessible mental health care would give people alternatives to suffering in silence. And as society, we need to continue breaking down the stigma, so that seeking help feels as ordinary as treating any other health issue. In the end, suicide isn't just about statistics, it's about real lives, families, and communities. Every person lost is someone's child, friend, or parent. By facing the reality of guns, mental health, and stigma together, America can work towards saving lives that might otherwise be lost too soon. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more thoughtful discussions from Brain Bloom Studio.